Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Community Radio Networks. It is today, Thursday, the 18th of July, and we have all the information that you need to take on the day today. And of course, we will start with the world news. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance made his first official speech as Donald Trump's running mate yesterday, delivering the keynote speech on day 3 of the Republican National Convention. For the third time in as many days, Trump made an unannounced appearance at the RNC following speeches by members of his previous administration, including Peter Navarro and Kellyanne Conway. Rudy Giuliani says he's doing fine after taking a public tumble on the floor of the Pfizer Forum. The former Trump lawyer could be seen falling on the floor of the convention, and it is Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio yesterday, a right-wing populist known for his unbending opinions, who introduced himself as a vice presidential candidate, open to compromise and eager for unity, but unapologetically drawn to hot-button debates. The 39-year-old will be the youngest of Veep since Richard Nixon. Well-spoken and wonky, he is widely seen as the next-generation leader of Trump's MAGA movement. Wednesday's populist, anti-establishment speech showing all this. And the other notable speakers last night were Representative Ronnie Jackson of Texas and, of course, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, along with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich and Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota. Donald Trump Jr. and also before Vice Presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, his wife Usha Chelukuri Vance spoke. The Republican National Convention culminates today with former President Trump expected to accept the party's presidential nomination, achieving a comeback 4 years in the making and anticipated even more in the past week in light of Saturday's assassination attempt. He's expected to accept his third consecutive party nod in prime time before thousands of supporters at the Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee. We do have him set to speak today on the final day of the Republican National Convention, and tonight's speech will mark Trump's first public address since last week's assassination attempt. The day's theme will be Make America Great Once Again, and Trump will accept his party's nomination and deliver a primetime address on how he plans to usher in this new golden age for America. Melania Trump and Ivanka Trump are both expected to make an appearance at the Republican National Convention, as former President Trump's son Eric says they will come in full force. Since the GOP convention began on Monday in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, neither Ivanka Trump nor Melania Trump have been spotted at the event. And the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General has said it has opened an investigation into the Secret Service's handling of security at former President Trump's Saturday rally when a gunman attempted to assassinate him. The probe was listed under the Counterterrorism and Homeland Threats Mission area on the Inspector General's website. It had no date listed for when the probe was opened. The gunman who opened fire at the former president was reported as a suspicious person and photographed 1 hour before he began shooting. Secret Service and FBI officials shared a timeline of events that revealed troubling new details about the assassination attempt and raised questions about why Secret Service officials allowed Trump to take the stage. It is hundreds of people who attended a vigil for the former fire chief who was killed at this rally for Donald Trump when this would-be assassin fired shots at the ex-president. The mourners gathered yesterday to commemorate Corey Compenator at the Lenaville Speedway in Pennsylvania, a private ceremony planned for today at the Lobby Hall in Freeport. And Trump has called the father of two's widow to offer his condolences. She said she declined a similar call from President Biden because her late husband was a devout Republican. President Biden, meanwhile, has tested positive for COVID-19 while on the campaign trail in Las Vegas, canceled the scheduled appearance at the Unidos U.S. annual conference in Las Vegas yesterday. He's 81 years old, vaccinated and boosted, but experiencing mild symptoms. He's tested positive, disrupting a key campaign event meant to shore up support with Latino voters at this critical juncture in the election. And as he experienced mild symptoms, he has received his first dose of the antiviral drug Paxlovid. President Biden also contracted COVID and traveled to Delaware to isolate, with his sickness coming just days before he's set to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Democrats worried about President Joe Biden's ability to win this November are making a renewed push for him to reconsider his re-election bid, using mountains of data, frank conversations, and now his own time off the campaign trail. It is former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who privately told President Biden in a recent conversation that polling shows that he cannot defeat Donald Trump and that he could destroy the Democrats' chances of winning. Representative Adam Schiff yesterday became the most prominent elected Democrat to publicly call on President Biden to drop out of the race. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer urging President Biden to drop out of the race in a private meeting, saying it would be the best for the Democratic Party. Also, Democratic leaders and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has expressed doubts about Biden's ability to win against Republican challenger Donald Trump. Pressure for Joe Biden to step aside as the Democrats' presidential pick to face Donald Trump has eased since the Republicans survived an assassination attempt last weekend. President Biden has become more receptive, though, in the last several days to hearing arguments about why he should drop his re-election bid. He has told in an interview yesterday that he would consider dropping out of the presidential race if a doctor advised him to. Nominations for the 76th Annual Primetime Emmy Awards were announced, with Netflix topping all networks with 107, followed by FX's best showing ever with 93. HBO dropped to third for the first time since 1996 after its flagship series Succession, the best drama winner in the 3 of the last 4 years, ended last year. FX's Japanese historical epic Shogun, based on James Clavell's 1975 novel, received the most nominations at 25, followed by the network's The Bear with 23, a record for a comedy. And this year marks only the second time an indigenous actor was nominated, with 3 receiving the nod. Longtime Survivor host Jeff Probst returned to the lineup after 13 years. Caitlin Clark set a WNBA single-game record of 19 assists yesterday in the Indiana Fever's 101-93 loss to the Dallas Wings. She also set the single-game rookie assist record, passing the 16 assists set by Tina Penichero in 1998. Additionally, she broke the Fever's single-season franchise assist record with 202 in 26 games. Another round of storms and heavy rain hit the East Coast yesterday after severe weather, including at least one confirmed tornado, wreaking devastation across the Midwest and the East Coast and left 3 people dead. A man has been detained on suspicion of stalking Taylor Swift ahead of the first of 3 shows by the pop star, according to German police. The man was detained following tips from organizers of the event, and he previously made threats against the singer. The American superstar is performing in Germany today and tomorrow, also as part of the Eras tour. The U.S. military will permanently dismantle the pier meant to deliver humanitarian assistance off the coast of Gaza, putting an end to the troubled effort to get humanitarian aid to Palestinians via the Mediterranean Sea. The mission to install the use the temporary floating structure is complete, so there's no more need to use that pier. The U.S. has announced new visa restrictions against Israelis who have committed violent acts against Palestinians in the occupied West, calling on Israel to hold those individuals accountable. And Israel's far-right National Security Minister, Ben Gvir, has entered the grounds of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem. Accompanied by a large number of Israeli police officers, he toured the eastern courtyard of the Al-Aqsa, which is the 3rd holiest site in Islam, entered the mosque last year also, and declared that Israel is in charge. Saudi Arabia's crown prince called Iranian President-elect Masoud Pezeshkian to congratulate him on winning the election. It is Pezeshkian, who's a heart surgeon, whose only previous government experience was as health minister for about 2 decades ago. Ursula von der Leyen is pledged to be a strong leader for Europe in a time of crisis and polarization as she made her final leadership pitch in a speech to lawmakers at the European Parliament ahead of a vote today on whether to grant her a second 5-year term as president of the European Union's Executive Commission. And the secret ballot at the 720-seat Parliament comes hot on the heels of strong gains by the far right in last month's election for the European Parliament. Leaders from across Europe have gathered at a grandiose English country mansion today for a summit clouded by worries about whether the US would remain a reliable ally if Donald Trump wins a second presidency. Newly elected UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer welcomed some 45 heads of government to discuss migration, energy security, and the threat from Russia as he seeks to restore relations between the UK and its European Union neighbours 4 years after their acrimonious divorce. At 152 years, the Open Championship, also known as the British Open, is the oldest major golf tournament in the world, and the best athletes in the sport are assembling in Scotland this week to take part at the Royal Troon Golf Club. American Brian Harman is the defending champion of the Open, and this year, Masters winner Scotty Scheffler, Tiger Woods, and Rory McIlroy are among the other 156 players competing to win the coveted Claret Jug and a prize pot of over $3 million. Spain sweated under its official heat wave of the year, with temperatures expected to reach 40 degrees Celsius in a large swath of the country today, and while Italy, Greece, and other areas of southern Europe also struggled to stay cool. Germany will halve military aid for Ukraine next year, even with the possibility that Republican candidate Donald Trump could return to the White House and curb support for Kyiv. German aid to Ukraine will be cut to 4 billion euros next year from around 8 billion this year. And Ukraine and Russia exchanged 95 prisoners of war each 3 weeks after their last swap, and as part of what have been occasional agreements to send captured troops home. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and the Russian Defense Minister have both reported that exchange. And Russia appears to be straining its air defenses to better protect one of President Putin's palaces. Russia moved another air defense installation close to his lakeside Valdai palace to protect it from Ukrainian drones. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa will open a new parliamentary term today to mark the official start of business for his 11-party coalition government, an uneasy union brought together by a historic election result. And his speech will likely outline the priorities for the new government, which were made clear after his once dominant African National Congress Party lost its parliamentary majority for the first time in the country's May 29th elections. Police in Kenya today have banned protests in the capital indefinitely during a lack of leadership that would ensure peaceful protests. The ban was announced hours before a planned protest later today, in which demonstrators were expected to march to the president's office calling for his resignation over poor governance. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. South Korea's president today appointed a former North Korean diplomat as a vice minister, the highest level government job for any of the thousands of North Koreans who have resettled in South Korea. And it is South Korea's top court that ruled this morning that same-sex couples are eligible to receive the same health insurance benefits as heterosexual couples, a landmark verdict hailed by human rights groups. Vietnamese President Tho Lam became the caretaker of the Communist Party because of party chief's poor health. He was elected to a third term as General Secretary in 2021, dominated Vietnamese politics since he became party chief in 2011. He is an ideologue who views corruption as the gravest threat facing the party. He is in poor health, and so now Vietnamese president has taken over. From Afghanistan to Bangladesh, India to Nepal, flash flooding and torrential rain have killed hundreds of people in recent weeks as the climate crisis amplifies the effects of the monsoon season, bringing this widespread devastation to South Asia. Millions of people have been displaced by floods, landslides, and heavy rains in recent weeks across the region, which is home to about a quarter of the world's population and among the most vulnerable to the impacts of the human-caused climate crisis. Colombo Strikers will clash with Kandy Falcons in the eliminator of the 2024 Lanka Premier League at the Premadasa Stadium in Colombo today. And the selection meeting for deciding India's squad for the upcoming tour of Sri Lanka was postponed by a day to today. The players leave for Sri Lanka on the 22nd, and the tour starts with the 3-match T20I series on the 27th of this month. And this will be followed by a 3-match ODI series. There is added interest to the squad announcement, as it could possibly with the announcement of India's new T20I captain, with Rohit Sharma retiring from the format after leading the team to the 2024 T20 World Cup title last month. India today advised its citizens in Bangladesh to avoid travel and restrict their movements after 6 people were killed in violent protests over quotas in government jobs. The advisory was issued by the Indian High Commission in Dhaka 2 days after the protests spread to more cities across Bangladesh and turned violent. The government there ordered the closure of schools and universities across the country as the protests are being spearheaded by students. The advisory issued by the Indian High Commission in Dhaka 2 days after these protests spread to more cities across Bangladesh and have turned very violent now. It is about 10,000 Indian nationals, including some 7,000 students who are in Bangladesh, and many of these are from Kashmir and are enrolled in medical courses. There have been no reports of any Indian casualties so far. Bangladeshi Prime Minister has vowed to punish those responsible for killing 6 people in these ongoing student protests over civil service hiring, hiring as well as their rules and hours after police forcibly dispersed a funeral ceremony to mourn the dad. 6 people were killed earlier this week in clashes around the country as rival student groups attacked each other with hurled bricks and bamboo rods. There have been earlier around 500 protesters staging this public funeral ceremony at the capital's prestigious Dhaka University. And internet users around Bangladesh reported widespread outage of Facebook, the main platform used to organize these protests. The Bhutan-China border negotiation and India's aid for Bhutan's development programs will be at the top of the agenda when Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri makes his first foreign visit to the Himalayan country this week. And during the visit, he will meet King Wangchuk and Prime Minister Tobge, also Foreign Minister Dhungyal, and hold talks with his counterpart Pema Chodhan. The BJP urged opposition parties, particularly the Congress and Rahul Gandhi, to refrain from using words that could incite violence against Prime Minister Modi, citing the assassination attempt on former President Trump last week. And it is also a Japanese leader, Shinzo Abe's killing that happened 2 years ago. 4 passengers have died and 2 are injured after several coaches of the Chandigarh-Dibrugarh express train derailed in Uttar Pradesh's Gonda today. The incident occurred in Uttar Pradesh, and a rescue team has been sent to the site for relief operations. A 40-member medical team with 15 ambulances at the spot, and more ambulances are on their way to the accident site. The train was coming from Chandigarh. The Supreme Court of India today asked the National Testing Agency to publish the city-incentivized results of the NEET by 5 o'clock tomorrow, keeping the identity of the students masked. The next hearing will take place on Monday. An FIR has been registered against the owner and security guard of the mall in Bengaluru that barred an elderly farmer from entering the premises because he was wearing a dhoti. The incident has sparked outrage and protests from farmer unions with demands for action against the mall authorities. Prime Minister Modi chaired a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security, which also includes Home Minister Amit Shah and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Took place amid a rush of terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir hours before the 2 soldiers were injured in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Doda district, where forces have been engaged in a prolonged operation to flush out terrorists linked to the killing of 4 army personnel this week itself. Jammu and Kashmir police have launched a major operation against this increased terror activity in the region. And in the second match of the Women's Asia Cup, it is the big clash between India and Pakistan in Dambulla. India women dominate the head-to-head record in the T20Is and are favourites to win the match. 4 Pakistanis were killed while multiple others wounded in a shooting near a Shia mosque in the Omani capital of Muscat, a rare attack in the otherwise stable Gulf Sultanate. Police said the overall death toll now has climbed to 6 in this report. And Pakistan has demanded immediate, robust and effective action by the interim Afghan government against the perpetrators of the terrorist attack on Bannu cantonment that martyred 8 military personnel, according to the Foreign Office. It is said that this was attributed to this heinous act of terrorism to the Hafiz Gul Bahadur group. Today, a press release issued from the Foreign Office said the deputy head of mission of the Embassy of Afghanistan in Islamabad was summoned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and delivered a strong démarche. A restriction on access to social media platform Facebook was reported to be in effect across multiple service providers in the country yesterday on Yom Ashura or Muharram 10, observed every year with solemnity to pay homage to Imam Hussein, the grandson of Holy Prophet Muhammad, and other martyrs of Karbala. Incarcerated PTI leader Imran Khan will remain imprisoned for the foreseeable future despite his successful legal appeals in April and June. Business Monitor International, an arm of the Fitch credit ratings agency, has said in its latest country risk report for Pakistan. PTI activist Sanam Javed finally walked free following the Islamabad High Court's decision to declare her arrest illegal and allow her to return to Punjab. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you, but I do have your financial news, and that's coming up in a separate segment, right now. In today's financial news, the tech stocks are eyeing a small comeback from the Nasdaq's worst day since 2022, as TSMC's upbeat results help calm worries about the AI trade ahead of Netflix earnings. Futures in the tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 rose 0.4%, while S&P 500 futures edged up 0.1%. But Dow Jones Industrial Average futures slid roughly 0.2%, coming off an all-time closing high for the blue chip index. Investors are increasingly confident that the global economy is headed for a so-called soft landing, where inflation falls towards the Federal Reserve's target without high interest rates sending the economy into a tailspin. Gold has risen to new record prices per ounce. It has risen 1.7%, and it is at $2,471, topping a high set on the 20th of May. And U.S. single-family home building fell to an 8-month low last month amid higher mortgage rates, suggesting the housing market was likely a drag on economic growth in the second quarter. President Biden canceled an additional $1.2 billion in student debt for public servants, the latest effort to provide loan relief and deliver on one of his signature initiatives in the midst of a re-election campaign. Donald Trump has had a surprisingly solid summer, raising the odds for now that he'll win a second presidential term. That's why financial markets are reawakening to the Trump trade, with varying implications for stocks, bonds, cryptocurrencies, interest rates, and inflation. While the assassination attempt on former President Trump hasn't improved his standing in the polls, he appears to be attempting to benefit from the shooting in another way. CIC Ventures LLC, a company reportedly owned by Trump, unveiled its new Fight, Fight, Fight high-top sneakers that feature a photo of a bloody Trump with his fist in the air. And this is a crudely photoshopped image of this shoe. And if you are interested in wearing an image of a bloody Trump on your feet, it is going to cost you. The shoes are being sold for $299 a pair. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the landscape of job skills and employment across various sectors. However, it is not without its challenges. A gender gap is emerging, highlighting a critical disparity on how AI impacts men and women differently in the workplace. Chip stocks Nvidia, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, and ASML have all soared this year thanks to investor bets on the artificial intelligence boom. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company lifted projections for this year's revenue growth after quarterly results beat estimates, reflecting the confidence in the longevity of the global AI spending boom. EssilorLuxottica has agreed to buy a streetwear brand Supreme from VF Corporation for $1.5 billion, the company reported, marking the first acquisition of an apparel company for the French-Italian eyewear maker. United Airlines' second quarter profit has risen more than 20% from last year. Strong demand for international travel boosted the carrier's result. But its third quarter forecast came in shy of estimates as an oversupply of flights weighs on fares. D.R. Horton tightened its annual forecast for home sales and beat Wall Street estimates for quarterly profit today, as historically low U.S. supplies lift new home sales despite elevated mortgage rates. Abbott Laboratories raised its annual profit forecast and beat Wall Street estimates for the second quarter earnings this morning, buoyed by strong sales of its cardiac and diabetes care devices. Domino's Pizza fell short of estimates for quarterly same-store sales today as inflation worries discouraged U.S. consumers, particularly in the lower income group, from eating out or ordering in, sending its shares down 11% in pre-market trading. Warner Brothers Discovery, the owner of CNN and HBO, has discussed a plan to split its digital streaming and studio businesses from its legacy TV networks as it looks to boost its flailing stock price. Netflix is set to report its fiscal second quarter earnings today after market close, but the streamer will once again have a high bar to overcome as the stock flirts with record highs. Angel City FC is now the most valuable women's sports team in the world, following an agreement by Willow Bay and Bob Iger to purchase a controlling stake in the National Women's Soccer League franchise at a $250 million valuation. The FDA and the FTC issued warnings to 5 companies this week as part of a joint effort to crack down on illegal sales of copycat snacks containing Delta-8 THC. The packaging for the THC edibles looks strikingly similar to that of popular foods such as Fruit Loop cereal and Chips Ahoy cookies, for example. But the edibles contain potentially dangerous amounts of a psychoactive cannabinoid. The FDA has said it is concerned that these products can be easily mistaken for traditional foods, leading to accidental ingestion or overconsumption. Put that summertime dog, not all of them, of course, we wouldn't be that cruel. It's the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Service announcing this today that nearly 7,000 pounds of hot dogs were being recalled because they were produced without the benefit of federal inspection. Ready-to-eat meat tubes coming from AW Farms of Argolite, a Kentucky meat manufacturer, produced this year in May. And it is Country Bear Jamboree who has reopened at the Walt Disney World today after being closed for a 7-month hiatus. But one character has quietly been retired from the revamped attraction. It's now called Country Bear Musical Jamboree, which will feature new genres of country music such as bluegrass, pop country, Americana, and rockabilly. It may not quite be the Jetsons flying cab, but commuters in California may soon be taking to the skies all the same. The Golden State is looking into implementing flying taxis. Archer Aviation, a company in San Jose, has entered into an agreement with Southwest Airlines to develop small planes that would be used to help commuters avoid some of the state's notably bad traffic jams using 4-passenger electric planes. Fans from around the world have spent days in Arlington for the Major League All-Star Game. The Texas Rangers hosted the game this week for the first time since 1992. In addition to the All-Star Game, over the past 18 months, Arlington has hosted 3 nights of Taylor Swift concerts at the AT&T Stadium, the World Series and Victory Parade, PBR World Finals, and Kid Rock's Rock and Rodeo. In 2026, the city will host 9 World Cup matches, the most of any location in North America. Arlington police say large events like the All-Star Game can help them fine-tune their plan for the World Cup. Italy's competition authority is investigating whether Armani and Dior have misled consumers about their production processes, following reports that local companies in their supply chains pay workers too little and force them to work long hours. The authority said Armani and Dior may have issued untrue statements about their ethics and social responsibility, in particular with regard to working conditions and compliance with the law. And the investigation is focused on some firms within the Armani group and some within the LVMH-owned Dior group. Greece is going to restrict cruise ships on popular islands amid worsening traffic and waste problems, calling for sustainable tourism as Santorini's vineyards are disappearing. Tourism is destroying these vineyards, according to many wine producers. The European Union governments exposed divided views on the merits of EU tariffs on imports of China-built electric vehicles in a non-binding but still influential vote. The European Commission, which oversees the bloc's trade policy, has set provisional duties of up to 37.6% on EVs imported from China to counter what it says are unfair subsidies, and has canvassed European Union member views in a so-called advisory vote. While the central government in India tries to woo Tesla for manufacturing in India, state governments like Gujarat and Tamil Nadu are trying to bring in Tesla's component suppliers to produce parts in the respective states. 3 component suppliers of Tesla, as well as other automakers, were in Gujarat for site visits recently, and 2 European suppliers are looking to expand operations in Tamil Nadu. The Indian economy is likely to grow at 7% this fiscal, while the Reserve Bank of India projected GDP growth rate at 7.2% this fiscal. The International Monetary Fund recently upped its India forecast to 7% this fiscal from its previous estimate of 6.8%, and the Asian Development Bank in its latest update maintained India's GDP growth forecast at 7%. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is set to present the Union budget on the 23rd of this month, as experts widely expect that at least a few popular schemes will be announced, which will help boost the rural economy and also create jobs. Stock markets remained on record-smashing course for the 4th straight day today, with benchmark Sensex breaching the 81,000 mark for the first time, and Nifty scaling the record 24,800 level, driven by buying in IT, oil and gas, as well as FMCG shares. We have IDBI bank shares rising 7% after the Reserve Bank of India submitted its fit and proper report. And block trades led by global firms have reached a record $15 billion. Rail stocks are zooming up to 101%. And first quarter results, where Infosys, Tata Technologies are among 45 companies to announce earnings today. We have Paytm getting a government panel nod to invest in Paytm's arm, as well as IIMC extending the deadline for admission to MA in Media Business Studies and Strategic Communications. India receives foreign direct investment inflows of $72.9 billion in financial year 24. And the authorities have asked to remove the 100% fruit juice claims from labels in India. We have Google News facing a brief outage where several users complain of accessing issues. And IIMC is introducing many other programs, as Z has withdrawn its application to merge operations with Sony from the law tribunal. And investors are preferring India to China, this infrastructure a bright spot, according to them. Infosys has beaten its first quarter estimates, and it is exceeding expectations in the first quarter. The revenue growth was driven by recovery in demand from clients in the financial services and manufacturing verticals. Crypto platform WazirX hit by a security breach, and $230 million have been withdrawn. Also, we have Ashneer Grover, advocating a hire fast, fire fast approach to recruitment, and said that companies spend too much time hiring a candidate and give the individual a lot of time to prove themselves, which can take up to a year. Monsoon session of Parliament that is scheduled to begin on the 22nd of this month will conclude on the 12th of August. And of course, the budget will be presented on the 23rd. LTIM shares have jumped again after the first quarter, and we have this morning the Sensex and Nifty rising as Toshiba Group is going to invest 10 billion Japanese yen in India to expand their capacity, and housing prices in the top 30 tier 2 markets are rising by up to 94% on high demand. The Karnataka government has paused and will further study a bill directing private firms in the state to reserve jobs for Kannadigas. And the bill cleared requires firms in India's IT capital to prioritize local hires for 70% of non-management roles and 50% of management-level jobs. The Bangalore Metro Rail Corporation, operating Bangalore's Namo Metro, said the Yellow Line is slated to open by the end of this year, with at least 8 trains operating on a 15-minute interval, according to the Deccan Herald. Frido founder and CEO Ganesh Sonavane has shared that he and Ather co-founder Swapnil Jain were denied entry inside a restaurant in Bengaluru over their dress code. The comment comes after an elderly farmer was not allowed inside a mall after he showed up in a dhoti and a shirt. The farmer's son recorded the incident on camera and urged the government to take action. And the Karnataka government has reportedly decided to seal the GT Mall on Magari Road. The International Monetary Fund today maintained Pakistan's growth forecast at 3.5% for the current fiscal year. And in a significant development, the provinces have agreed to expand the scope of sales tax to include a wide range of services from the next fiscal year. And this news out of Islamabad. This action is aligned with the International Monetary Fund requirements under the staff level agreement, reaching for a new $7 billion credit line. The import of finished steel products has significantly increased in financial year 24 in Karachi, leading to inflated prices due to dollar appreciation and the reduction of local production. That, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have for you in the financial news, but I have the final segment of your program coming up. In this final segment, let us get you first some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 18th of July, way back in 1925. Volume 1 of Adolf Hitler's philosophical autobiography, Mein Kampf, is published, a blueprint of his agenda for a Third Reich and a clear exposition of the nightmare that will envelop Europe from 1939 to 45. The book sold a total of 9,473 copies in its first year. His autobiography, Mein Kampf's first volume, was published on today's date in the year 1925, subtitled A Reckoning. 400-plus page diatribe on the alleged problems besetting Germany, the French who wish to dismember Germany, and the lack of living space, and the need to expand east into Russia, and the baleful influence of mongrel races. We do have on today's date in 1940 that Franklin Roosevelt, who first took office in 1933 as America's 32nd president, is nominated for an unprecedented third term. A Democrat, he would eventually be elected to a record 4 terms in office, and the only U.S. president to serve more than 2 terms was FDR. And on the 18th of July 1947, President Harry Truman signs the Presidential Succession Act. This act revised an older Succession Act that was passed by George Washington. The original Succession Act designated the Senate President pro tempore as the first in line to succeed the president should he and the vice president die unexpectedly while in office. And if he for some reason could not take over the duties, the Speaker of the House was placed next in line of succession. Fortunately for the country, there has never been an instance in which the presidency has had to pass to anyone other than the vice president. But Harry Truman signed this second Presidential Succession Act on today's date in 1947. In a ceremony that was held at the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, General Eisenhower appoints Florence Blanchfield to be a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, making her the first woman in U.S. history to hold permanent military rank. She was a member of the Army Nurse Corps and secured her commission following the passage of the Army-Navy Nurse Act. And that was the first female Army officer commissioned on today's date in 1947. Shortly after leaving a party, it was Senator Edward Kennedy of Massachusetts who drove an Oldsmobile off a wooden bridge into a tide-swept pond. He escaped the submerged car, but his passenger, 28-year-old Mary Jo Kopech, did not. The senator did not report the fatal car accident for 10 hours. He drives this car off this island on today's date in 1969. There is speculation that he used his considerable influence to avoid serious charges that could have resulted from that episode. And also, although that incident helped to derail his presidential hopes, he continued to serve as a U.S. Senator of Massachusetts into the 21st century. He died in 2009. In her Olympic debut at the tender age of 14, Nadia Comaneci becomes the first gymnast to score a perfect 10 in Olympic history. The young Romanian's performance at the Montreal Olympic Games launches her into the international spotlight on today's date in 1976, when gymnast Nadia Comaneci scores her first perfect 10. James Oliver Huberty opens fire in a crowded McDonald's restaurant in San Ysidro in California, killing 21 people and wounding 19 others with several semi-automatic weapons. Minutes earlier, he had left home telling his wife, "I'm going hunting for humans." He had a history of mental problems. An hour after the shooting began, an employee managed to escape through the basement and inform the SWAT team that Huberty was alone and without hostages. With this information, sharpshooters were told to take him out. A marksman sent a shot through his chest and killed him after making sure that he was dead. Police finally entered the restaurant but before that, it was 21 people who were shot to death at this McDonald's on today's date in 1984. And 2 years later, on the 18th of July 1986, new close-up videotapes of the sunken ocean liner Titanic are released to the public. Taken on the first manned expedition to the wreck, the videotapes are stunning in their clarity and detail, showing one of the ship's majestic grand staircases and a coral-covered chandelier swinging slowly in the ocean current. At the time of its launch, the RMS Titanic was the largest ocean liner ever built, measuring nearly 900 feet long and 150 feet from its waterline to its highest beam. The video of the Titanic wreckage was released on today's date in 1986, and even after several years of visiting the wreckage, not a trace of human remains has been found. Like other soft degradable materials such as wood and carpet, human body parts were most likely scavenged by sea creatures not long after the ship's sinking. On the 18th of July 1989, the 21-year-old actress Rebecca Schaeffer is murdered at a Los Angeles home by Robert John Bardo, a mentally unstable man who had been stalking her. Her death helped lead to the passage in California of legislation aimed at preventing stalking. This legislation was introduced because of this incident that happened on the 18th of July in 1989. And in 1995, Dreams from My Father, a story of race and inheritance, a memoir by a little-known law professor named Barack Obama, is published. He wrote the book before entering politics. 13 years after it was published, he was elected America's 44th president. But his book, called Dreams from My Father, was published on today's date in 1995. Those were some stories from the annals of history that happened on the 18th of July. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end my show here, and if you would like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.